Welcome to English 3E. This is week 9. We are on unit 5 and this is lesson 31. I am Jillian Percy and here are all the ways to reach me. I'm in the studio right now, so if you want to talk to me now, 1-800-465-7144. I will be back in my office after I'm finished there, and that number is 1-800-667-3703. You can fax your work to me at 1-800-463-7852. And if you want to rewatch a recording, it is at capital G, capital P, ERCY, space, capital W, AHSA. If you have a question for me, you can send it to jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. Submit your assignments to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. Please remember to put your full name, the lesson number, and the assignment name or number on it, plus what course you're taking. I've got at least 4 courses I'm responsible for. I get a lot of assignments. If I'm not sure of where an assignment goes, I don't mark it right away. I just wait until I can talk to the student to be sure, because every assignment has a different marking scheme. Okay, I know we've talked in depth about the categories of adjectives before, but I want to review it as one of the assignments for today specifically mentions using them. So adjectives describe or modify nouns or pronouns. They can help describe sensory details, just telling us how something looks, sounds, tastes, smells, or feels. They can tell us about materials, age, origin, or purpose. Many subjects have special adjectives relating to their topic that might describe specific categories. An artist might describe a painting as impressionistic, like the painters who were part of the Impressionist movement. Chemists might refer to inorganic materials. Construction workers might discuss a hatchet hammer or a scaling hammer. These are all uses of adjectives that are very specific to a certain field. So today we're going to take a look at some of the adjectives you might use to describe places and landscapes. So one thing you can do is describe the aesthetics or the appearance of a city. Adjectives can really set the scene for a city, describing its beauty or lack thereof, and its features is key. Here are some adjectives to give you an idea. Bustling, vibrant, busy, and full of life. Picturesque, visual charm like a painting. Historic, prominent and well-preserved past. When I hear historic, I usually think that the architecture is either old-fashioned or there's some specifically historic buildings in there. Modern, state-of-the-art architecture and designs. Lively, vivacious, and energetic atmosphere. Think like New Orleans or something. Quaint, old-fashioned charm and cozy. Dreary, bleak, gloomy, uninviting. That makes me think of like concrete streets, no trees, ugly skyscrapers. Crowded, high population density, congested streets, lots of cars, lots of bikes. Pristine, clean and well maintained. Magnificent, impressive and grand architecture or beautiful landscapes. You can also use adjectives to describe the atmosphere or the vibe of a place, because different cities do have a different kind of atmosphere, energy. Lively for energy or excitement, serene for peace and calm, vibrant for vivid and colorful life, cosmopolitan for a global and open-minded atmosphere, vintage for a classic and retro feel, quaint for old-fashioned charm, hectic for a busy pace, like think New York City is hectic, rustic for a simple rural vibe. And then you have specific adjectives that are used to describe different types of landscapes. So here we have some adjectives you might use to describe mountains. Mountains could be majestic or stunning, towering, awe-inspiring, rugged. They could have steep, rough terrain, serene. They've got majestic listed twice. I don't know why. Picturesque, Weathered, eroded over time. Sometimes you'll hear them described as rolling, right? Or peaked. Let's see. Adjectives for describing beaches. I don't know if you know this, but it's kind of funny sometimes, like different beaches can be very, very different. And these are not the only ways I would describe them. So beaches are wonderful. Poems and songs have been written about them for centuries. You might talk about one being serene, calm, and peaceful. I usually think of that one like it's tucked away somewhere, not many people are there. Picturesque, again, which can always be used, right? Perfect and idyllic, like a postcard. Majestic. There, I think of like beaches over in like places like Greece, where there's going to be like lakes, but also mountains behind it or something. Secluded, hidden, and remote, away from the city. Exotic, unique and unusual, with exotic plants and culture. That's when you often hear if you're going to visit someplace new and like it's got palm trees and the rocks are different colors and the animals are different. Sunny, warm and sunny with golden sand and blue waters. Romantic. I'm not sure what makes a beach romantic. I think in general beaches are romantic, but not always. I've seen some beaches that are rocky or forbidding, narrow, uh, could be littered if it's in certain kinds of places. Some beaches are near like boardwalks or near busy streets. So they might be described as busy or lively. Adjectives for describing forests. Forests are a site of diverse wildlife and vegetation, so they must be described. Here are some adjectives that sum up these magical natural landscapes. Lush, when you're describing like thick growth of trees and plants. Verdant is used to describe that rich green color. The tranquil and peaceful atmosphere can be known as serene. The thick growth and older, I think of older twisted trees, might make forests look mysterious. Some forests date back hundreds of years, giving them a feeling of age and wisdom. Ancient. When I was out in California, some of the trees there were like 200 years old. The height of trees can be described as towering. A walk through a forest can be enchanting. Forests are full of fauna and flora, making them an abundant ecosystem. Tall trees, lush leaves, and serene environment can make a forest majestic. Now, I think of majestic as a very certain type of forest, really tall, tall, tall trees. That makes majestic to me. And there's other words to describe. I'm just trying to give people some examples. So when we come time to do the assignment, you've got some kind of some different adjectives in your mind for these things. Now, if you're describing a city, you might also be describing the architecture or the buildings, because another different thing about visiting different places is it's interesting how different buildings can be from one city to another. My brother lives down in South Carolina, and when I go to visit him, the houses are all really thin and narrow, but like brightly colored, like candy, like bright pink, bright yellow. It's very strange. Okay, hang on a second. Okay. Aesthetic, relating to beauty or the appreciation of beauty, sorry. Contemporary. So contemporary would mean like things that have been built recently that are new, modern. I always think of like lots of glass and metal for that kind of stuff. Eclectic, taking ideas from various sources. Grandiose, appearing magnificent, pretentious, again, big, ornate, highly decorated. I think of lots of curves when I think of ornate. Minimalist, limited decoration with very simple forms. Think of things that are very boxy. Gothic. Gothic refers to a certain period, architecture of Western Europe from 12th to 16th centuries. If you think of things like the Notre Dame Cathedral is an example of Gothic architecture. Futuristic, modern and unusual ideas in art or design. So if you see a building and it looks like, oh, that looks like it could be, you know, something from out of a sci-fi movie that's kind of futuristic architecture. Rustic, countryside and rural. Rustic makes me think of stone houses or log cabins, or if you're over in Europe, those kind of houses that have like thatched roofs and stuff. Utilitarian, useful, practical, and they aren't saying it, but usually if you say a building's utilitarian, you're also kind of implying it's sort of ugly. Some of the college campuses I've seen, the student, what do you call them? The word keeps coming to my mind is barracks. That's not the right word. But anyways, the buildings where the students live are often very boxy and a little bit ugly. Adjectives for describing streets or urban areas. Busy, bustling, lively, gritty, vibrant, and again, you get our two favorites, quaint and picturesque. These are by no means the only words you could use. They're just an example of some of the words you could use. Okay, so today's assignments are, we're going to read Beautiful Bruce Peninsula. We're going to do questions number 7 and number 8. We're going to look at how to conduct interviews. We're going to read Man in Action, do questions 9 and 10. And if we have time, we're going to do how to create videos. Okay, so this is a whole little, I don't know, kind of article, I guess, on the beautiful Bruce Peninsula. The Upper Bruce Peninsula has 800 kilometers of shoreline on the Georgian Bay and Lake Huron, and it is a fascinating place to work or visit. This was written to give tourists information about what to see and do in the Upper Bruce Peninsula. Communities often create attractive travel brochures to encourage tourism and visitors to their area. Okay, so Lake Huron. So it's part of the Great Lakes system. If you have the textbook in front of you, you can kind of see it a little bit better. But anyways, this is the Upper Bruce Peninsula, okay? A stroll around Little Tub Harbor. Take a stroll around Little Tub Harbor and learn about the history of the settlement. The historic walking tour begins at plaque number 1 on Ontario Northland's ferry dock on the north side of the harbor. A brick pathway starts the head of the harbor and ends at Lee Brothers Fisheries. At Lee's, there is a wooden boardwalk extending to the Harbor Tugs dive site. This is one of the few sites within Fathom 5 National Marine Park that is accessible from the shore and is also a perfect location for snorkeling. Please be aware of the private property adjoining the site and do not trespass. The wreck of the Alice G lies east of the entrance to Little Tub Harbor, and like the majority of Fathom 5's shipwrecks, sunk as a result of a fall storm. Gale force winds in November of 1927 tore the ship from its berth in Little Tub Harbor. Now the wreck lies in 6 meters or 20 feet of water. There are 3 other steam tugs accessible from the boardwalk. You can even see the stern of the John and Alex jutting out of the water. These and the Bob Foote and the Robert K are visited by snorkelers and divers wishing an enjoyable shallow dive. As you enjoy your harbor stroll, visit the various stalls around the harbor. You can purchase locally made crafts and artwork, read a book, buy a t-shirt, or enjoy food from among several restaurants. Try fresh or smoked whitefish, a traditional favorite in Tobermory. Also available are essentials like groceries, camping gear, dive accessories. Take a ride on a tour boat and see the shipwrecks in Big Tub Harbor through the glass bottom. You will see the harbors do resemble very large bathtubs. Among locals, the tub is also a short form for the name of the village. The stroll around Little Tub Harbor is an essential part of a visit to Tobermory. This is a unique opportunity to enjoy a peaceful small town harbor, experience the sights and smells, and learn a little local history. Places like Tobermory and Little Tub Harbor are fast disappearing, so take the time to enjoy their beauty. Surprised they don't mention there's a ferry along there. Okay, so here is a calendar of events. It goes through the whole year. I imagine there is other things that happen too, but these are kind of the major events they can tell you ahead of time are going to be happening. Winter activities. Tobermory has a variety of winter activities for the outdoors enthusiast, ranging from crisp, clean, and unobstructed cross-country skiing to snowshoeing, snowmobiling, or ice skating. The scenic snowmobile trails can be found with ease, thanks to the efforts of the Tobermory Snowmobile Club, who maintain groomed trails from Tobermory to Miller Lake. From there, excellent trails continue on to Lions Head, Wyorton, and the rest of Ontario. The majority of local trails run through forests of cedar, spruce, pine, and tamarack, with some maple, beech, oak, and birch trees. There is very little open field running. Cameron, Cypress, Emmett, Upper Andrew, and Moore are some of the inland lakes adjacent to the snowmobile trail. There are scenic lookouts over Georgian Bay at Daves Bay, Dunks Bay, and at Halfway Log Dump. Lake riding is never recommended because of uncertain ice conditions. Please remember to conserve Ontario's last frontier, leaving only your tracks, not trash, on the trail. Restaurants, motels, campgrounds, and gas stations are available close to the trail. Within Bruce Peninsula National Park, campfires are only allowed in the fire pits at Cypress Lake Campground. Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs trail permits are mandatory, so call the trail permit info hotline before you head out. Trail maps are available at most local businesses or from the Tobermory Snowmobile Club by calling them. Information on trail conditions and special events can be obtained through, I'm not saying all the numbers, sorry. Cross-country skiing can be enjoyed on trails throughout the region and also at area campgrounds. Although the trails are not professionally groomed, there is nothing like the tranquility of breaking your own trail through the fresh, clean snow. The Bruce Trail, heading out from the village of Tobermory, will provide a beautiful run for the novice or the experienced skier. Lots of short trails around Dorcas, Bay Beach, Cameron Lake, Hay Bay, Cypress Lake, and even along the edge of the road can be suitable for a pleasant jaunt. The Winter Carnival held in February is a chance for local children and those visiting the area to get right into the heart of winter fun. There is a snow sculpting competition, outdoor ice skating, snowmobiling rides, and organized cross-country skiing. During the day, the Firefighters Association keeps a snack booth going with lots of hot chocolate and hot dogs. The event is usually topped off with a dinner of pizzas or spaghetti at the community center, community involvement at its best. Don't miss your chance to enjoy Tobermory year-round, and keep in mind the snow conditions are often superior to the southern locations of Ontario due to our somewhat extended winter season. Okay, next page is all about diving and shipwrecks. Acclaimed for its clean, clear water, historic shipwrecks, and spectacular underwater geological formations, the waters at the tip of the Bruce Peninsula are a major destination for divers and other water enthusiasts from all over North America and Europe. Canada's first national marine park, Fathom 5, is located here. Within its boundaries and the waters surrounding the peninsula lie some of Canada's oldest and best preserved shipwrecks, many dating back to the mid-19th to the early 20th century. These historic wrecks invite not only underwater exploration by sports divers, but will appeal to all visitors who have a keen interest in Canada's maritime heritage. Visibility is so good, the crystal clear water allows this fascinating underwater museum to be seen while snorkeling, or from glass-bottomed tour boats that regularly leave Tobermory Harbor. For the dedicated diver, the area waters offer an abundance of exciting and diversified diving sites to satisfy all tastes and levels of experience, from beginner to advanced technical level. Beneath the surface, a diver will find underwater caves rocky overhangs, primordial coral formations, and historic shipwrecks, as well as the completion of the first phase of the development of an artificial reef for the area. All facilities for the diving enthusiast are located within Tobermory harbors, and excellent emergency rescue systems and a hyperbaric dive chamber make the area one of the safest places to train and dive in North America. In May 1999, the Tobermory Maritime Association sank the 558-meter ex-tanker, the Niagara II, as part of their initial phase of an ongoing program to draw new and repeat divers to the area from all over North America and Europe. In its first season as a wreck dive site, the Niagara II has become the most popular wreck diving experience in the area. To celebrate this inaugural event and as part of their fundraising program, the Tobermory Maritime Association had a professional video and interactive CD produced of the sinking, which are now also available to diving clubs and dive tour operators for their review from the association. It never crossed my mind before that they would deliberately sink the ships for the divers to go through. I just assumed everything there was au naturel and it had a real accident. Okay, bike routes. One of the most scenic drives and bicycle routes in the area follows the Georgian Bay shoreline northeast through the village of Dyers Bay to Cabot Head, the eastern tip of the peninsula, a distance of 10 kilometers. The road is paved for the first 2 kilometers, then becomes gravel. It is not heavily used, so riding is pleasant. After turning east on the Dyers Bay Road, 20 kilometers south of Tobermory, continue into the village of Dyers Bay and travel northeast on the paved road. Cottages dot the shoreline and roadside for several kilometers. There's hardly a moment when Georgian Bay is more than a stone's throw away. Watch for glimpses of the Niagara escarpment high above the trees. There are also several shorter bike routes, beginning in Little Tub Harbor. Go to Highway 6 and turn right, heading north to the T-junction. Ahead, glimpses of the bay can be seen. This is known locally as the Gap and is a favorite swimming place. Turn left on the Big Tub Road and follow it past cottages on Tobermory's other harbor, Big Tub. At the bottom of the steep hill, you will get glimpses of the head of the harbor, where 2 shipwrecks lie. Continue around the other side of the harbor until the road ends. Big Tub Lighthouse sits proudly marking the entrance to the harbor. There are lots of storm-strewn boulders to climb, good swimming, and usually lots of scuba divers investigating the rocky ledges. A solar-powered washroom is close by. 2 short routes off Highway 6 will take you to Georgian Bay. Dunks Bay, a short ride from the highway, has a beautiful sand beach. Little Cove is known for its spectacular boulder beach and is accessible from Little Cove Road. Okay. This is question number 7. Based on the variety of information provided in the tourist brochure for the Bruce Peninsula, you are to describe what a visitor would be able to see and do in the region throughout the year. Try to use some adjectives in your writing. 1 paragraph containing at least 7 sentences for 10 marks. Okay. Brainstorm or plan in your writing. When you're doing a summary of something you've read, often the first place to start is with that piece of writing. If you're able to photocopy it, you can then go through it and underline or highlight parts that you think are important or interesting to mention. If you can't photocopy it, take some paper and make some jot notes of what seems important. A jot note is not the whole sentence, just the crucial words. So, for example, let's read this sentence. These historic wrecks not only invite exploration by sports divers, but will appeal to all visitors who have a keen interest in Canada's maritime heritage. What the jot note might be, divers love historic shipwrecks. The assignment specifically mentions adjectives. Are there any specific adjectives being used to describe different places that you should use, or will you need to come up with your own? And if you notice, there are a few pictures of some places, so you do have the opportunity to use your own descriptors as well. After you have your jot notes or highlighting completed, look at how to create a rough draft out of them. Maybe you can combine several notes into one sentence, or maybe once you're finished making notes, you can see that other items might not be as important as some. Let's say you have some jot notes about a trip to Windsor, historic auto town, bridge and tunnel to USA, lots of farms nearby, freighters and motorboats, pollution issues, lots of immigrants, university and a college, high trade on border with trucks, train brings cargo containers to go to USA. How can I turn these little fragments or phrases into a sentence? Windsor is known historically for its main industry of being the home of the main auto factories in southern Ontario. It is a busy town with a bridge and tunnel crossing over the river to the USA. Due to being a border town between the two countries, Windsor has a lot of trade go through town by trucks and trains. It is also the first home of many immigrants new to Canada. So some of this I've expanded on my own because of my own knowledge of Windsor. And other times I combined jot notes that seemed related, like the fact that there's a lot of manufactured goods that travel from Canada to the US by train, but also by truck. You don't want to take a look at your jot notes and just make the most basic sentences like, it is a historic auto town. There is a bridge and a tunnel to the USA. Think about how you can join the sentences to make them interesting. After you have the rough draft completed, be sure to follow the revision steps. Check for clear, understandable content. This is key. If I can't tell what you mean or what you're trying to say, it's very hard for me to give it good marks, okay? Then check for sentence structure. Are the sentences grammatically correct? Do you have a variety of styles? These are the first two because often if the sentence structure isn't correct, it affects how readable your work is. Look at the word choice. Do you need more interesting words? Look at the transition words or phrases between sentences. Make sure you have an opening and a closing sentence. Go over your punctuation, especially commas and question marks. Check your spelling. Review your capitalization. Only when you've gone through these steps is the assignment ready to hand in. Question number 8. If you're going to promote tourism where you live, what would you want visitors to see and do? 3 or 4 sentences for 3 marks. You don't need to go through the whole writing process for this. It's too short. Tourists tend to look for new or unusual activities to do, interesting landscapes, like to take photographs of or just to look at, new food or drinks, music, dance, or arts related to the place they're visiting, new or unusual architecture or buildings, interesting or unusual modes of transportation. I was going to say one more thing. I was going to say shopping. So you could use those ideas to think about where you live. What would you want to bring tourists to? Okay, so this is about how to conduct interviews. Let me take a quick look at it. Okay, so an interview is a series of questions and answers between 2 people or 2 groups of people. 2 common kinds of interviews are job interviews and informational interviews. The key to any good interview is to be a good listener so that you can ask relevant questions or give the best possible answer to a question. Before you follow the steps to conduct an interview, think about these questions. What do you do now when you prepare for an interview? And what questions do you expect to be asked in an interview? Step 1, know the basics of your interview, the topic, the interviewee, and the purpose. Arrange a time and place for the interview. Both should be convenient for the interviewee. Step 3, research the topic or person briefly. Ask yourself, what do I already know about this person or topic? Why am I interested? Why did I choose this person or topic? Step 4, write at least 5 questions that cannot be answered with a yes or no. Questions that really interest you about this person or topic. Think about and write questions that ask who, what, where, when, why, and how. When you've written your questions, ask yourself, will the answers tell me what I want to know? Will the answers tell others what they want to know? If not, maybe you need to change your questions and make them more, change them in whatever way makes more sense. Once you've created the questions, decide on the order in which you should present them. It's often best to start with easier, more routine questions and leave the more sensitive questions to the end. Leave wide spaces on your paper to record answers, or write each question on a separate sheet of paper on an index card. I wanted to go back to this part about leaving the sensitive questions to the end. And the reason is because if you've ever seen an interview with certain kinds of actors or singers and they get mad about a question and they just walk off, that's always a risk. So you don't want to ask the hard questions first, or you're not going to have much to write about. And if you're someone who writes as a living, that's a big problem. So you ask the easy questions, the friendly questions first, and you wait for the tricky questions or questions that might upset them to the very end. Step 5, gather all the materials you need, from pen and paper to batteries and a video camera. Make sure you know how to use them. Step 6, arrive at the interview ahead of time to set up your equipment. Step 7, begin by introducing yourself to the interviewee. That just means the person you're interviewing. Remind him or her of your purpose in conducting the interview. So that can be like, you're about to promote a new book. You're about to start a series of lessons that you're about to promote. You're going on a tour, whatever you're going to be doing that you're trying to conduct the interview for. Start your interview with a question about the interviewer's interests. This will make him or her more comfortable and more open to asking difficult questions. As you ask your questions, take notes. If necessary, ask the interviewee to pause to give you time to write down the responses. Next, move on to the routine questions. Finally, ask any sensitive questions. Thank the interviewer for his or her time. Later, send a thank you note and possibly a copy of your final product. I would say almost always, if it's being published, right? If you were someone who's writing an article for a newspaper, you would generally send the interviewee, a copy of the final story, right? Step 9, use the information gathered to write your report, summary, or article. If you use an exact quote, use quotation marks. If you agree with the interviewer that something is off the record, do not include it in your final product. You'll sometimes hear that in movies where the guy wants to tell something, but he doesn't want to get quoted. He doesn't want it to come back to them. And they say, well, I'll tell you off the record. And it kind of sounds like, well, what's the point of that? If the reporter can't use it, what's the point of telling the reporter? Well, the thing is, a good reporter will go and find other ways to see if they can find someone who's willing to go on the record, or some sort of paper trail that will prove it without tying things back to the person who told. Some of the biggest stories, thinking of like Watergate and stuff, came from somebody who wanted to make sure that somebody heard about something, but didn't want their name included. So they were going off the record. Newspapers, annual reports, a company's website. These are all good sources for research. Make sure you look neat. Shake hands firmly and show that you're confident. Check the spelling of the interviewer's name. Speak clearly. Make eye contact. Avoid chewing gum and using slang. Be interested, enthusiastic, and a good listener and recorder. Audio tape or videotape the interview with the interviewer's permission so that you can record quotes accurately. Check your notes and your recordings after the interview. Contact the interviewee if something is unclear or to verify quotes. And then we have, these are some models of the questions asked at an informational interview and at a job interview. What is different about the questions and what is similar? So an informational interview. So it looks like you're interviewing somebody to find out more about their job. How much information, how much education and work experience are needed for your job? What are some of the challenges you have faced in your job? What is a typical day like for you? What are some of your job achievements? If you change jobs, what future directions would you like to take? And then a job interviewer. Is there anything you'd like to know about our company? Why would you like to work for our organization? What skills and strength could you bring to this position? What did you find challenging or difficult about your current work? Why did you leave your last job? Tell me about a time when you demonstrated responsibility. Tell me about a time when you recognized a problem and corrected it. Tell me about a time when you showed leadership. Give me an example of a group situation where you used strategies for conflict resolution. What were the results? All right, so then we have an article, I think it's only a few pages, 4 pages, on, oh, that's funny. Canadian Jeff Adams is a champion Olympic and Paralympic athlete and a record holder in wheelchair track events. In this 2001 interview, he reflects on his image and his identity as a Paralympic athlete and the high points and low points of his career in competition. In your opinion, what qualities and characteristics make someone an Olympic champion? This is quite small. Let me see if I can make it a little tiny bit bigger. Gosh, I don't know that I can. Sorry, hang on a second. Let me just try something. Sometimes I can expand it a bit. Oh, nope. Well, if I can't do it, I might have to skip on. Give me a sec. Oh, one more chance. Okay. Let's see if I can make it significantly bigger. All right. As we celebrate our publication's 10th anniversary, we've taken a look back through our issues to bring you what we're calling the Magnificent 10. These 10 individuals, all previously featured in Active Living magazine, embody the message we work to bring to our readers each and every issue. Their can-do spirit, innovative nature, and commitment to a physically active lifestyle speaks volumes to what's possible when we dare to try. Representing a diversity of disabilities and a medley of walks of life, this is a tribute to them and all the others whose similar stories have graced our pages over the years. So this one is just about Jeff, I believe. Okay. I am going to read the question for this really simple so we know what we're looking for, because I may have to I'm worried we're going to run out of time. According to the magazine article, Man in Action, who is Jeff Adams and what is important to him? And he speaks about what's important during his interview. One paragraph containing at least 6 sentences. So you don't have to do any research. It's in the article. Okay. And then do I have, yeah. Remember to follow the writing process steps for this question: pre-planning or brainstorming, rough draft, revising. This step is always the meatiest step. It's the one that should take the longest and where you should be doing the most work. Editing, good copy, publishing, or handing it. This is also part of question 10. Rick Hansen is also a well-known Canadian. Using the internet and or what you may already know about him, comment on who he is and his accomplishments, 3 or 4 sentences. So you're going to have to kind of look up a little bit about him. Not a huge paragraph. You just need a few sentences explaining who he is, what is he known for, what has he done, that kind of thing. Okay, I'm going to go back and take a look at the article now. That way, if we run out, we're okay. Oh my goodness. All right, well, I'm going to do it this way. My apologies. Okay, first featured in our publication in 1992, after his second Paralympic Games, Jeff Adams has continued to compile record performances in wheelchair track events over his career. Now a multiple medal-winning 4-time Paralympian, 3-time Olympian, Adams is an outspoken and sometimes controversial advocate for the disabled sporting movement, for accessibility issues, and for inclusionary opportunities. A highly sought-after public speaker and Terry Fox Hall of Fame inductee, Adams continues to move the yardsticks where attitudes towards people with disabilities are concerned and stand as Active Living magazine's 10-year man of action. Okay. You are the biggest name in disabled sport in Canada, and I understand that you're committed to help bring the Olympics and Paralympics to Toronto. What's your role with the Toronto Olympic 2008 bid committee? And Jeff answers, I'm chairing the accessibility committee, and I'm part of a task force that's going out into the community to make sure we're doing what people want us to do. There have been a bunch of things that have happened to me in the last little while that have really drawn my attention to the importance of accessibility. I had always thought of Toronto as a very accessible city until I was asked to leave a couple of places. I'd gone into clubs and gone either upstairs or downstairs, areas that weren't traditionally accessible to wheelchairs. And staff people came over to me and said, this area isn't for wheelchairs and you're going to have to leave. It wasn't anything I was doing behaviorally. I mean, I've been thrown out of clubs in the past for those sorts of reasons, and that's fair enough. But in this case, they told me that I was creating a fire hazard and talked about liability and that sort of things. And I've now realized that Toronto has some access problems, and that's got to change. And there are a lot of barriers that are just based on bad attitudes towards disability. So that's the main thrust of what you're doing with your time outside of training for your sport. Well, I'm doing a lot of things. I've got 6 more months of training before the World Championships. And then that's it. Or do you know? I'm committed for 6 months. After that, I don't know. In the meantime, I'm working as a spokesman for Tourism Toronto, dealing with accessibility issues. Toronto will lose conventions if the city isn't accessible. So they've brought me on board to address that issue. I'm also working with a web design firm that's interested in making information on the web accessible. After all, it's how it should be. All these accessibility issues tied together. What about your marketing? What about marketing yourself as an athlete? Are you still trying to do that? Yeah, well, a few years ago, I went really hardcore into that. And I saw the dark side of sports and of myself, in that I went out of my way to get into the spotlight, to promote myself and my sport. I would do anything to get interviewed. I haven't done that for years now. Instead, I just went out and started racing, and that kind of allowed me the freedom to explore other things that interested me beyond my sport. I used to attack life based on sport, and now I'm attacking sport based on life. So if I can have a great time living while I'm doing my sport, then that's good, because it used to be the other way around. The country came to know you in 1996 through your McDonald's restaurants commercials. Does the world know you by that association? And are there other Paralympic athletes with as much profile as you've gathered? Well, I have been a high profile athlete, but you look at someone like Louis Savage, a lot of Paralympic athletes have a huge profile in Australia. Then you take the Swiss racers, they have a big profile in Europe. Or Chantal Benoit. You walk the streets of Montreal with Chantal, and people are stopping her every few minutes. All right. Sorry, hang on a second. You were largely responsible for the image that was created for yourself through the media, commercials, and sponsorships. What was the dark side you were talking about? Did that recognition come with too much responsibility? Jeff says, I'm not sure it was too much responsibility. I don't think the pressure got to me. I think I just got tired of watching myself look for attention for my sport. Have you ever watched anyone look for attention? It rings hollow. So right now, if someone wants to come out and watch a wheelchair race and appreciate the beauty of it, I love that. I loved Australia because the kids were genuinely coming out to watch the Paralympic sports. It wasn't token. I was setting things up in 1996. Right now, I'm taking a more natural approach. It's a lot more honest, I guess. When you promoted your sport, were you doing it as much for the sport as for yourself? Well, first off, I was trying to make a living. That was my first priority. I was looking at myself as a professional or a semi-professional athlete who had to get out there and make a buck. If I could drag my sport kicking and screaming into it, great, but I would have been going out to promote myself if I'd been a kayaker too. A lot of people will tell you, oh, I just want to promote the sport, but you're an athlete first, and the sport you choose, or perhaps the sport that chooses you, is secondary. I mean, people who talk about doing it all for that sport, well, whatever. I say you're an athlete first. What would you say has been the highlight of your whole career? The highlight would be a toss up between the Commonwealth Games in 94, the World Championships in 95, and Sydney this year. I've had so many wonderful experiences, and most of them have been at able bodied competitions. This year in Sydney was the first year that I would rank the Paralympics as comparable to some of the able bodied competitions I've done. To be honest, this year I think the Paralympics were better than the Olympics. From what standpoint? I think the people who watched the Paralympic Games seemed like they were having a lot of fun doing it. And it was great to race in front of crowds like that. The two best races I've ever had in my life were at the Sydney Paralympics. Everything I've been working on for the last 4 years just came together. What were the lowlights of your career? Ooh, that's a tough question. Every Olympics I've ever raced at, I've had to deal with sickness, pressure, a bad race, whatever. And no matter how well I've been racing, I didn't make the finals. The lowest of the low this year was at the Sydney Olympics, where our race can't take, when our race was taken off the main roster. Oh, that's nasty. It wasn't even a demonstration sport anymore. We got an email from the IOC a few weeks earlier saying, you are not a part of the Olympic family. You are not an Olympic event. You are a standalone part of the program. I'd been talking to kids about how the Olympic ideal should transcend any differences between athletes. But to get an email like that saying you're not a part of the Olympic family, well, that was the lowest point of all. I believe so strongly in going out and promoting the Olympic and Paralympic ideal, but the gap between theory and practice is getting larger and larger. What is the Paralympic ideal for inclusion in the Olympics? Look at it this way. In any given Olympic competition, 99% of all the athletes are disabled or less able compared to the one athlete who wins the event. So we don't need to bring the issue of disability to the Olympics. What we need to look at is what makes the Paralympics a good thing. I get frustrated because we're talking about the Paralympics as an elite sporting event, but we aren't doing what we need to make it one. We're marketing ourselves as elite, but we're not selling our sports that way. If there's value to the Paralympics, why do we always promote ourselves in the context of the Olympics? I think there's an intrinsic value we're not talking about, and we need to. We need to legitimize what we do by opening it up to all competitors. If I have an able-bodied buddy who wants to race me in a wheelchair, he should be able to, but he can't. I'm working my brains out every day to make things accessible for people with disabilities, and my own sport isn't accessible to able-bodied competitors. So you're saying anybody should be able to race against you? Yeah, you can't tell me that an able-bodied person has an advantage over a double leg amp in a wheelchair. The double leg amp is born to race a wheelchair. There's a natural advantage to having less body weight on your legs. ALM, you don't think that opening up the competition to able-bodied athletes would run you out of the sport? If at the end of the day, 40,000 able-bodied competitors showed up at races all over the world, I'd say, God bless them. This is a natural progression of the sport. That's what we're fighting against, this protectionism of the sport. If you truly love sport and you truly love participation, then you have to define what makes a sport elite and let anyone who meets that criteria compete. Whew, what an interesting article. I had not read that before. Okay. We've done that. We talked about Rick Hansen, use the internet, find out who he is. And then, oh my gosh, okay, time is up. We will tackle the video thing tomorrow. We have 2 more days left, I think, in this course. So hopefully you're getting your assignments in. If you have trouble with anything, give me a phone call and let me know, okay? I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.